Imagine being locked inside a bank vault. You're staring straight down the barrel of a loaded gun. But then, 6 days later, you're actually defending the very man holding it. Sounds crazy, right? Well, welcome to the Dark Archive. Today we are opening a file on the sheer, unyielding survival logic behind Stockholm Syndrome. And honestly, I want you to completely throw out everything you think you know about victims, captivity, or human weakness. Because today we're diving into a dark, cinematic, and deeply personal reality that literally lives quietly inside every single one of us.
Okay, to really understand this psychology, we have to go back to where the name actually comes from. It's August 1973. 4 bank employees are just going about their totally normal day in Stockholm, Sweden, when armed men suddenly storm the building and take them hostage. For 6 absolutely terrifying days, they are held captive. But by day 6, the unthinkable happens. The hostages actively refuse to be rescued. They physically defend the men holding them at gunpoint. They even refuse to testify against them in court. And years later, get this, the ultimate paradox. One of those hostages actually becomes romantically involved with her former captor. The whole world watched this unfold and called it sheer madness. But the world was wrong. So let's break down what actually happened inside that bank vault. And I want to speak directly to you right now because I need to be absolutely clear about this. Stockholm Syndrome is not a weakness. It is not stupidity, and it is definitely not some kind of character flaw. Not at all. It is a profound, incredibly powerful psychological adaptation. See, when you are put in a position of complete and total powerlessness, your brain executes this deeply ingrained, highly sophisticated program just to keep you alive. It actually develops positive feelings toward the exact person who holds the power of life and death over you. The brutal, almost terrifyingly simple logic driving this entire response really just boils down to one desperate thought. If I cannot escape, my absolute best chance of survival is to make them like me. Your brain is essentially just a survival machine, right? It is constantly calculating the odds of keeping you breathing. And the fastest, most effective way to make someone like you, to make someone actually spare your life, is to genuinely like them first. Because you can't fake it. A captor will instantly sense fake compliance. So what does your brain do? It literally rewires your actual emotions to make that affection completely real.
Now, for this extreme rewiring to actually take place, researchers have identified 4 specific conditions. And it all kicks off with condition 1, a perceived threat to survival. We are not just talking about some mild discomfort or a heated argument here. The victim has to believe, deep down in their bones, that this abuser has the total power and the absolute willingness to cause them serious, life-ending harm. Pure, visceral fear is the very foundation that this entire syndrome is built upon.
Next up, we introduce condition 2, small acts of kindness. And man, this is where the psychology gets dangerously twisted. Because these acts, they don't even need to be genuinely kind. Think about it. When you are entirely at someone's mercy, completely expecting them to inflict pain, and they simply choose not to hurt you, your desperate, terrified brain processes that absence of violence as this profound act of mercy. A glass of water, letting you use the bathroom, or just lowering a raised fist, all of a sudden, that is warped into overwhelming kindness.
Once that twisted sense of mercy takes root, the trap snaps shut, with condition 3, complete isolation. You are entirely cut off from the outside world. No friends, no family, no one who can offer a different perspective. And here's the thing, when the abuser is your single, solitary source of information, well, their reality becomes your only reality. You start seeing the entire world strictly through their eyes, simply because you literally have no other lens left to look through.
And finally, we hit condition 4, a perceived inability to escape. And the absolutely crucial word here is perceived. Because honestly, it doesn't matter if someone on the outside thinks the door is unlocked or points out that there's a phone right there on the table. If the victim's mind truly believes that leaving is physically or even psychologically impossible, that they'd be hunted down, killed, or just utterly destroyed, then the mind adapts to staying. It completely, utterly surrenders to the cage.
So why exactly is our brain programmed this way? Well, it all comes down to brutal ancestral evolution. For the vast majority of human history, if you were captured by a rival tribe or some enemy group, it almost always meant certain death. Your one and only possible way out was to convince those captors that you were valuable, loyal, and completely submissive. Fast forward to modern captivity, whether you're trapped in a bank vault or your own living room, your brain is still reacting to that abuse as if it's that exact same ancient, primal life or death scenario. It's an evolutionary failsafe.
Listen closely to this because it's absolutely vital. The brain that bonded was the brain that survived. And because that specific brain survived, it passed on its genes. What that means is this mind-blowing, desperate survival mechanism lives inside of you, right now. It is literally hardwired into our human neurology. It's just lying dormant, waiting to activate if you ever, God forbid, find yourself in a situation of extreme, terrifying dependency.
To really grasp this, consider how it manifests out in the real world. Take the year 1974, for example. Wealthy media heiress Patty Hearst was violently kidnapped by an armed radical group. She was shoved into a closet, kept there, and was absolutely terrified. And yet, within just weeks, she was literally holding a rifle, robbing banks alongside the exact same people who stole her life and publicly defending them. The media immediately labeled her brainwashed, but if we look at this with deep compassion, we have to see it for what it truly was: a complete, total psychological adaptation to a horrific, violent kidnapping. Her brain simply did what it had to do to keep her breathing.
And then there's the deeply, deeply tragic case of Natascha Kampusch in Austria. She was stolen as a young child and held captive in a secret underground cellar for 8 agonizing years. When she finally, miraculously managed to escape and later found out that her captor had died, she wept bitterly for him. Her story is absolute proof of how completely the human mind can mistake a desperate survival adaptation for genuine, profound love. The grief she felt was 100% real to her because her brain had painstakingly built an emotional bridge to her abuser just so she could survive the darkness of that cellar.
But look, this phenomenon isn't just about famous, headline-grabbing kidnappings. You do not need to be locked in a literal bank vault to become a hostage. This stuff happens every single day in living rooms, childhood bedrooms, and everyday office buildings. We're talking about abusive romantic partnerships where one person controls every single resource. Toxic parents raising children who basically have no choice but to love the person harming them because they are completely dependent on them to survive. Or even controlling workplaces with tyrannical bosses who hold absolute power over your professional identity and your livelihood. Those 4 conditions we talked about, power over survival, intermittent kindness, isolation, inability to leave, they are vividly, terrifyingly present in all of these situations. Which brings us face to face with probably the most judgmental, frustrating, and widely misunderstood question asked by outsiders who have just never been trapped in these dark psychological webs. We've all heard it, right? Why didn't they just leave? When we look at a friend in an abusive marriage, or maybe a colleague stuck under a toxic boss, we tend to ask this question out of pure confusion and exasperation.
Well, the answer to that is a total psychological tragedy. Because by the time Stockholm Syndrome is fully developed, leaving doesn't actually feel like freedom anymore. It feels like betrayal. You have to understand that the victim's entire psychological structure has been systematically, meticulously reorganized around one single goal: keeping the abuser happy. Because in their mind, keeping the abuser happy literally meant staying alive.
There is just this impossible, massive gap between the outside world and the victim's reality. To an outsider, it looks so simple. The victim is acting completely irrational and just needs to escape the danger immediately. But to the victim, their reality has been entirely distorted by survival. They genuinely, truly believe the abuse is their own fault. They believe the abuser actually loves them. And most importantly, they believe that outside of that relationship, survival is absolutely impossible. Leaving means they have to dismantle the very psychological walls their own brain built to protect them. And honestly, that is absolutely terrifying.
But listen to me, there is hope. Escaping and recovering is absolutely possible. Now, it is a grueling process of breaking free and rebuilding what was dismantled, for sure. But here's how it starts. Step 1. You absolutely must restore outside perspectives to finally shatter that isolation. Step 2. Reconnect with past friends, the people who knew the real you before the captivity even began. And step 3, which is definitely the hardest part of all, you have to relearn how to trust your own mind. You have to trust your own perceptions again, which, remember, were deliberately and systematically undermined by the abuser just to keep you dependent.
If you, or maybe someone you know, has been through something like this, I want you to hear this profound validation right now. The feelings of love and loyalty you felt, they were entirely real. You are not crazy. Trauma bonds feel exactly, 100% like love. But just because they feel like love doesn't mean the relationship was safe. Recognizing the difference between a trauma bond and genuine healthy love is not a betrayal of what you felt. Walking away is actually an act of supreme, courageous self-respect.
So, we're gonna leave you today with this final massive paradigm shift. Stockholm Syndrome is not a weakness. It is the ultimate, undeniable evidence of a human mind that absolutely refused to give up.
It is the hardcore proof that your brain will do absolutely anything, even completely rewrite its own reality, just to ensure that you survive against impossible odds. It is a true testament to human resilience.
The psychological mechanisms that govern all of us are incredibly complex, and they're so often hidden right there in the shadows. But understanding them, that's what brings us into the light. The archive is open, but right before we close this specific file, ask yourself something. If your back was pushed firmly against the wall, what reality would your brain rewrite just to keep you breathing? If you want more of these cinematic deep dives into forbidden psychology, buried history, and the dark truths that secretly govern the human mind, then hit that subscribe button for Dark Archive. We will see you next time.